Hello listeners and welcome to today's Cult News. I'm your speaker Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast, and for today I have a roundup of various cult news stories or segments related to manipulation, exploitation, coercive control and high demand groups. As there are a lot of articles to get through, I will give a glimpse into each one, but list the articles in the episode description if you'd be interested in reading more. Slate released a piece recently on the new hit series Yellowjackets, discussing what has been dubbed a cult within the second season of the popular TV show. According to the article, Lottie, the matriarchal leader, can be compared to Teal Swan, a charismatic so-called guru working within the wellness space. The article states, some of the aspects of Lottie's cult on Yellowjackets, like the purple clothing and the fact that contact with family members is discouraged, quote, our anchors are at the compound, might seem like features of a pretty extreme cult, but Doyle says they are actually characteristics of how many cult-like groups in the wellness space operate. Supposedly, everyone is free to do whatever they want, but it's made clear that to achieve the benefits of the group or guru promised, followers should follow the unwritten rules, end quote. I do need to watch Yellowjackets so that I can offer some insight and opinions myself, and I'll aim to do that soon. Much has been in the news lately about abuses taking place inside the armed forces in America and afar. According to military.com, Air Force officials are investigating staff at daycare centers at Hill Air Force Base in Utah after allegations of child abuse surfaced. Salt Lake City's Fox 13 was the first to report that 37 kids may have been abused, and that 12 Child Development Center staff members were being investigated, according to a briefing by the base's commander, Colonel Jeffrey G. Holland. With BreakingNews.ie reporting that those who use and abuse within the military should be named and shamed. The article states a statutory inquiry into abuse in the Defense Forces should name and shame those responsible, a former Army officer has insisted. Diane Byrne, a representative of the Women of Honor campaign group, warned that its members would be willing to walk away from the process if it failed to deliver accountability. And then, SOFREP.com website released an article on the US military being investigated over juvenile sexual assault claims. The article states Democratic lawmakers demanded a separate and outside investigation into allegations of sexual abuse within the Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, or the JROTC, to protect high school students from exploitative practices and predatory instructors. The group, which includes Senate Armed Services Personnel Subcommittee Chairwoman Elizabeth Warren, D-Mass, and House Oversight Committee Ranking Member Jamie Raskin, DMD, reportedly wrote a letter asking the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, to launch a probe. The purpose is to help the US Congress determine whether to scale back or shut down the JROTC program altogether. According to the lawmakers, any incident of sexual abuse or harassment is unacceptable and betrays the faith and trust that the JROTC cadets and their families have placed in the US military. Military leaders view the JROTC program as a critical recruitment and outreach tool. It is offered at over 3,500 US high schools, reaching over 500,000 students. This is all poignant information, as Daniela Mestianek-Young states in her work about group behavior and her time spent in the Children of God before enrolling into the US Army, drawing parallels in her work between cult-like behavior within both groups and highlighting rape culture within the armed forces. Daniela's memoir, Uncultured, is a gut-punching read which is available now, and I highly recommend people go and read it. There are also 2 interviews with Daniela on the Cult Vault podcast that you can go and listen to today. Recently, I did an overview of the allegations against Marvel Cinematic Universe actor Jonathan Majors, who is playing a key part in the next phase of the MCU. Majors is facing allegations of assault, which has caused some issues in the upcoming release of the new series of Loki, in which Majors is due to reprise his role as He Who Remains, also known as Kang the Conqueror, who is said to be the next major villain in the MCU. The Direct.com issued an article stating that the Loki series had a disappointing update with its upcoming release date. The series is being pushed back, supposedly due to writers' strikes and production issues. However, there have been talks that Majors could be replaced amidst these allegations, even though he vehemently denies them, along with his lawyer, who, according to People's Magazine, has called the allegations a witch hunt against his client. There is no official news on whether Majors will be replaced as of yet, but if you'd like an overview of the case, you can find it on this channel. BoingBoing.net has released an article recently stating that the Conspirituality podcast has released a segment on the Tulsi Gabbard cult that she has been associated with. The article reads, "If you appreciated learning about the dark past and highly questionable at best and dangerous at worst beliefs of Tulsi Gabbard, yes, those homophobic, Islamophobic and conspiratorial culty beliefs that inevitably guide her politics through QAnon Anonymous episodes 211 and 212, you'll want to check out the latest drop from the Conspirituality podcast. Episode 152, Tulsi Gabbard's Krishna Consciousness with Nitai Joseph, provides an even deeper dive into the religious group she grew up in and still has ties to, the Science of Identity Foundation, an offshoot of the Hare Krishna movement, whose members exhibit strict devotion and absolute loyalty to the group's notoriously secretive guru Chris Butler. There is a book that now accompanies the incredibly informative and intelligent podcast Conspirituality, which is titled Conspirituality: How New Age Conspiracy Theories Become a Health Threat, which is written by hosts Derek Beres and Matthew Remski, as well as author Julian Walker. An audiobook version is coming too, with host Matthew Remski doing the narration himself. I recommend checking out this podcast if you're interested in content around cults, specifically the dangers of self-help, spirituality, wellness, and conspiracy theories. Lastly, for today's cult news roundup, we have some information coming from the anti-troubled teen industry space. According to r/troubled teens subreddit, a program highlighted by survivors as abusive and dangerous, called Outback Wilderness, has announced publicly that it will be closing. Whether this is down to less children and young adults being enrolled into the program, whether it is the waves of the anti-TTI advocates, parents and caregivers becoming aware of these places, or whether it is continuous legal action that has forced the hand of this wilderness program, we will never know for sure. What is known is that many people forced into this program are then sent along to Spring Ridge Academy, a so-called therapeutic boarding school which also recently announced its permanent closure. Is this due to facilities no longer being able to secure insurance as more people come forward to sue for damages, for example? We'll have to wait and see. The father of Taylor Goodrich has also spoken out recently about losing his daughter at Diamond Ranch Academy. Taylor Goodrich, who entered Diamond Ranch Academy with good health, began complaining of stomach pains which were ignored by staff, waved off as manipulation or lies. Taylor Goodrich continued to cry out in pain, eventually unable to move or walk, and remained bedbound on her mattress in excruciating pain on the floor. With a distended stomach, staff continued to ignore her cries for help. Taylor Goodrich eventually died from medical neglect and suspected sepsis. Not the first child to die within Diamond Ranch Academy, shockingly, even though it still remains operational, and certainly not the first life to be lost to the troubled teen industry. Many children die within these facilities or go missing and are never seen again, or tragically take their lives upon leaving such abuse, unable to move forward or recover from these horrible experiences. Taylor Goodrich's father has spoken about the heartache of placing your child in a place that promises to care for your child, only for your child to never come home. I have a lot of troubled teen survivors speaking out on the Cult Vault podcast, and to learn more, you can check out the back catalogue of the show. That is the end of today's cult news, and we take a minute to honour the life of Taylor Goodrich. I'm your speaker, Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast.